Good morning, everyone. Well, now we've got a live update on what's happening on the weather and also boat positions and activities. We've just had our first knockdowns during the night. RA has reported a couple of knockdowns, only minor damage on board, and Jean-Luc's still screaming ahead, and Mark Slats has had snow, hail, plenty of winds, over 50 knots plus, and Gregor must be doing okay because we haven't heard from him, but he's moving well on the tracker. So yeah, bit of a quick one. First, I want to just point out what's happening here with the weather overall. If you look at this is a massive high pressure system that's dominating the entire South Atlantic. And this is what we normally would have expected to see as all of the boats were heading down south over the last month or so. But we didn't see it. It was all very confused down here, lots of low pressures, high pressures, a bit mixed up, which made this area up here also very erratic. So boats were pushing to windward, others were running, some boats becalmed with all these little pressure systems. But this is classic South Atlantic stuff. And it's probably because we were coming down early in the season. If we had been a bit later, like Suhaili is, it's a bit more organised. So right today, Francesco's very happy, doing 5.4 knots, obviously pleasant sailing, classic trade winds from the southeast. In fact, all of this area is southeast trades. Antoine's heading off over to Rio with a nice following breeze. He'll be enjoying that, shouldn't be too much hard work. Gets to look after his shoulder and his feet and so on, maybe play some music and drink some coffee. As for Mark Sinclair, Captain Coconut, he's doing it uncomfortably right now. This is showing he's on a beam reach, but the message we got suggested he's a bit on the breeze, banging along to windward, and he's only making 3.3 knots, and that's consistent with that speed's consistent with those conditions. Istvan, same thing again. They're on the wrong side of the high, basically, so they can't make easting. He's got a easterly wind. He's heading down southeast in this direction, driving into the middle of this high. And up the top here, Tapio, he's gone. He's not there anymore. Remembering he's actually sailing ahead without the tracker giving him positions onto the screen here. We've got his messages. He's okay. He's beating to windward, and he's in this sort of an area here. Still on the wrong side of the high. Not good. Poor old Igor, he's out on a blinder, exactly the same as we saw with Tapio previously and Susie. He's on the wrong side. He's got a strong, solid southeasterly breeze. He's making 4 knots to the northeast out here, sailing right away from the mark. And he will know that. So once again, I think the only reason he's heading out this way is because the sea state may be knocking him around. So when he tacks, he's probably tacking through about 130 degrees, 140 degrees, and it's going to drive him back into the middle of this high. So he's not in a good position there, and he'd be very frustrated because remembering, a couple of weeks ago, he was right up here with the middle fleet and doing well, but now he's getting left behind. And, well, there's some bad news with the weather that I'll talk about in a minute once we review the whole fleet. So Loic making 3.6 knots in this hole of no wind and headwinds. So he's got light headwinds. He looks like he's on starboard tack. Winds forward of the beam, but just light. Pleasant sailing conditions. He's not getting clobbered like some of the others, but not going anywhere in a hurry. Tommy has been doing okay. He's still doing 5.6 knots, still basically on course, but it's a race for him to get away from this no wind zone. So he'd have reasonable conditions, although he's reported that he was in survival mode and he had some bigger winds yesterday, but it's now departed. Survival mode as in little bits, not actually surviving for his life or surviving to keep the boat together, but just he's been doing a lot of, or the little things have been happening with the boat, little bits of damage. We don't know specifically what yet. We'll find out on the phone call next week, but he's been busy. He's had 3 days of fixing things. Susie, again, she's got a southerly wind, so she's heading out, a bit northeast. Southeasterly wind sort of thing. It's probably a bit more developed from the east than this is showing. Still, 5 knots, so just not free sheeted or anything, but not going where she wants to go, but at least she's making a bit of easting on that. Philippe Peche, of course, he arrived yesterday about midday, as we said. Chased the worst of the weather, but he actually still had 40 knots when he went in. The crew from the Royal Cape Yacht Club came out in a big boat to help guide him in and give him a hand, so they've been really helpful. Thanks for that. And there was a few people there involved, the portmaster and so on. So he's safe and sound, tucked up, and you've probably already read the news from Philippe. He is retiring from the event now. He's not carrying on. He is a racing guy, and we all knew that. He's done an incredible job. Jean-Luc will be very disappointed. He would have realised a few days ago that, or a week ago, that Philippe's not carrying on. So he lost his racing buddy to a degree, but good to see Philippe safe in port, and he's got some great stories to tell. It was an epic, that last 2 weeks. So yeah, that was quite a challenge and quite an achievement in itself when you think about it. Some people think of a little ocean voyage. He did about 1,500 miles with a short stubby tiller and no autopilot, no nothing. So quite epic. Anyway, moving right along from there, this is the interesting story. But before I go there, let's just look at this classic high pressure system here that is dominating the South Atlantic, because it's so powerful. And if we go into, because it's so big, I'll show you what it does to the weather. If we go into, first of all, the pressure gradient, this high is so big, it's black in the middle, right? And these, you've probably seen a weather map with similar isobar lines. That's lines joining areas of the same barometric pressure. Well, here it's done with colours. It's exactly the same. So these are like contours of the pressure gradient, and you get an idea of what's going on. But if you look on the scale down here, if you look at the colours there, I don't know whether you can see that. If you're this greeny colour in here, the barometric pressure is 1,019 hectopascals, or and then you go into the orange, then you go into this purpley, this sort of a mauvey colour, you might say, and then you go into like purple. But this is the purple here. This is bordering on black, so it's 1,028 hectopascals in here, and basically it's gone off the scale. It's really a big high pressure system. So, and that's why it's so powerful. But what it does when it interacts with the other lows, this little low pressure system here, for instance, is not going to have much strength against this big powerful high, and it squashes up the isobars, makes a lot of wind there. And what you'd be hoping is that's going to move. So if I go back to, if I bring it back here and go back to wind, you would be hoping that this will do all the traditional things now and keep moving that way. But watch what happens when I start moving this forward. So that's the 26th today at 10 o'clock. These are about 2 hours, 10, 11, 12, and it's, no, 10 o'clock UTC. Okay, so that's current. No, this is the wind, not the positions. Does that make sense? I was getting confused. So the position reports from the boats came in at 8 UTC. That's 10 o'clock French time. It's now 11:40. So they're a couple of hours old, these positions of the boats. But the weather is a little bit more advanced on that. That's right now. So this weather is very current. So we'll move forward a day. So that's the next day. It basically doesn't move. It's just squashing up. Okay, the center of this high is staying the same, and the winds are still getting squashed here and creating strong winds. If we go through to the 28th, same time, this high pressure center is still in the same spot. There's changes here, and there's a big band there. I'll just hold that for the moment before I show you what's going to happen at the front end. So now we're back to real-time weather. I will just boost our view here so we can see our guys that are affected by the big winds. This is now yesterday, Uku there was a big wind band through here. They were getting 7 metre seas, big winds, 40, 50 knots, would have been gusting 60 and so on. And last night, about midnight our time, I was watching Ari because we got the message. He broke the breakaway coupling on his servo pendulum rudder. Now the rudder, that's the bit that's swinging in back and forwards in the water to drive the boat, has a coupling in the middle, and it's designed, if the rudder gets stressed, like my finger, boom, boom, that coupling will snap, and that saves damaging the wind vane or the paddle itself. But you then got to go over this, you've got to reach down the side, bolt a new one on, put the rudder back on. It's a fair bit of work, and so he broke the coupling and he had to lay a hull. And when I saw he was laying a hull in the big winds, I'm thinking, oh, not a good thing. You try not to lay a hull in those conditions. But he did. At some stage, I believe he has probably now fixed his wind vane, and he's probably steering under wind vane, but he may be hand steering. Whatever, he's now sailing again. He's doing 4.3. When he was laying a hull, he was doing about 3 knots. Gregor managed to continue sailing, so Gregor actually moved past him during the night. And sometime, possibly when he was laying a hull, or maybe just after he started to hand steer, whatever, he's taken 2 knockdowns during the night. Some minor damage, nothing to worry about. He's not concerned. He's obviously doing it tough. And it's a balancing act in the sense that it's dangerous outside when you're hand steering in these small boats, but if you've got no wind vane, it's even more demanding. So he had to make his own value judgments. I'm sure we'll hear about it next week on the phone call, but before then, it's just the messages that we're getting. Anyway, he's okay for now. No dramatic news from Gregor. He's just sailing on. He did bear away a bit. You can see here, Ari, if we boost that up a bit again, you'll see the difference in course. This was all happening back here. Gregor immediately started to bear away in the big winds. Ari was holding up. He was holding there, and I'd say this is when the wind vane broke. As soon as the wind vane broke, he started to lay a hull and move with the wind, and that's how it was developing. So Gregor's got a bit of a break, and he's taken it a bit easier maybe. Mark Slat's just charging ahead on course. He wants to hold his course. He's reported the snow and the hail and all that sort of stuff, very cold temperatures, so all of these guys would have got it. Uku's calmed down a bit now, but he had some big winds last night as well. They're all moving well. Uku's doing 5 knots at the moment. Mark Slat's doing 5.1. He could go a lot faster, but he's just under storm jib. He's just got a storm jib up, just taking it as steady as he can, heading across. Not sure what Gregor's up, but he's also taking it easy. Jean-Luc, and remember this is weather now, not as it was. He had some big winds overnight, and you can see he's come through here, and all of a sudden he's gone with the wind and heading off, taking it a little bit easy. He hasn't got any pressure from other entrants. He's not racing when they're in conditions like this. They're just sort of pretty much looking after the boat and looking after themselves. So what's happening to the weather in this group here as days progress forward? First thing, we'll go forward a day, bingo, and Jean-Luc's going to get a bit of a respite. These guys have still got plenty of wind over the next 24 hours, not big storms like they had last night. It's going to get a bit quieter. So Jean-Luc's got a bit of a rest, but it changes pretty quickly. So that's one day, that's the 27th. We'll go through to the 28th, about there. He's had various big winds come across, Jean-Luc, so he'll make the most of that, probably get back on track and keep moving to the east. We go the 29th, and it settles down again. So now all of the fleet have got a reasonable look in, or when I say all the fleet, these guys have got a reasonable chance to keep moving fast over to the east. But now we'll look at the big picture. Jeepers, sorry. This is going to reboot now, I think. Yeah, sorry about that. This is what happens when it's live. So we'll just pull this down again, and we'll put the weather over. At least it's Sunday, so you can't be too bored. If you are, you can go for a walk in the park. You probably are anyway. So here's the big picture of what's going to happen. Remembering this big high here, and remembering where our guys are. I'll pick it up one more size, and you might be able to see the whole fleet. Okay, so we'll go through to the 27th, 28th. That's 2 days. Now we've got 3 days. All right, it's a big mess. It's a big mess. In fact, I'll go back here one. So the high pressure system decides to blow itself apart. I'm losing it. Okay, so that's still the center of the high pressure system. This is the 28th, so it's 2 days ahead. So all of these guys, everyone will have moved 2 days in advance. Susie's on the wrong side of the high. So she's still going to be in this low wind band. She's not going to be going anywhere for the next couple of days. She's going to get left behind by all of these guys who have got constant winds going out to the east. The same with Tommy. If he holds up, he's going to miss it. He'll start to slow down. If he keeps down to the south, he'll keep moving away and make big gains from these two. But the position of Loic and Susie in the next few days, not looking good. The tail enders are going to get a kick. They'll get around probably. And it gets even worse. You watch this. So that's the 28th. We'll go through to the 29th. Okay. Again, as I'm saying, Susie is up there. And these guys coming behind here, Abolish and Loic, they'll get caught in this light wind band. They'll be 3 days ahead. So it's about 300 miles ahead. They'll be here somewhere, very light winds. These guys, Ari, Gregor and Mark, they'll be up in this area, breaking away from this back group. I've got a feeling Uku might get left behind. We'll have to see what happens. Jean-Luc will be going great guns. He'll be trucking along here, still pulling maybe a little bit away from Mark and so on. But then here's the crunch factor. Remember we talked about these strong headwinds coming. It starts to develop here. First of all, there's the light winds. Now, bearing in mind, this is on the 30th, so 4 days ahead. Gregor, Are, Uku and Mark, they will be up here somewhere, starting to get light headwinds. Jean-Luc could be right over here, and he'll have southerlies, but he'll probably keep moving. If he does, this could separate him hugely from the fleet, because the next day, and this is in line with what we discussed the other day about these headwinds coming, here it comes. This whole massive band of headwinds, right, and really strong headwinds. And Jean-Luc, if he's lucky, will be the other side of this. He won't get any of this. He might just squeak away from it, and these guys are going to be trapped on the other side, and some of the tail enders are going to be hooked up in those light winds. So we may see 3 distinct groups forming. Jean-Luc way out the front. Uku, Mark, Ari and Gregor, they're going to be battling these headwinds, I reckon, and big holes. They've got some challenges ahead. The other guys could get left behind. But who knows? Just one quick final look in. Let's see what the waves are doing back then. We'll come back to today and now. You can see the middle fleet. These, Ari, Gregor, Uku, Mark, they've still got big seas. You know, this is still 7-8 metre seas. And that's all going to change a little bit. The guys behind, they're getting the seas as well, but frustrating winds, which makes it even harder for them to kick in. But that'll open up. The high will get rid of that, and it's only these guys down here that are going to have the seas again for another, maybe 2 days. They're going to overrun Jean-Luc a little bit again here. He's still going to have tough conditions. There we go. That's the 28, 2 days ahead, 3 days ahead, starting to get organised. And then we come right up to the rest of it. The northerlies don't create the big seas, obviously. So these headwinds, this is when the headwinds are happening. The seas will die down a bit because they're not being generated from deep south when it goes up. Temperature-wise, bring it back today. It shows you 5 degrees temperatures on 5 degrees. This greeny colour here is 5 degrees, and it'll be colder than that. This is an average, but that's where the snow and all the rest of it came from. So that's pretty much it for now. Let's hope they're all safe and keep heading towards Hobart. But some interesting stuff. I'm feeling really sorry for Igor. He'll be so pissed. Everyone back here is doing it a bit tough. They'll be frustrated and wondering what it's all about. But there you go. That's the Golden Globe. So we'll see you again later.